Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another episode here on Stonehall Sports of the Freshman 15 podcast, talking college football in or about 15 minutes. The entire college football world is shaken to its core based on last week. So, not going to mess around, not get too deep into the intro. I'm going to jump right into it, introduce my co-host, Tyler Moore. Tyler, what's going on, man?
Oh, let me finish my haterade real quick. I've had a good weekend. The Cowboys didn't play. I watched some NFC teams lose, and then I watched two of my least favorite teams lose in college football. So I can't complain.
Yeah, I'm kind of going in the opposite direction, man. I watched Philly win, which was not fun at all. Lost in fantasy, that sucks too. Thank you, Andy Dalton, for not being able to hit nothing wide open. And I actually started Isaiah Likely over Zach Ertz, so I'm kind of feeling that one. Yeah. But anyway, man, so here, man, and we're back. So it's college football. We have a lot to go over because, last week, right, we led and ended our show with Georgia versus Tennessee. So that was our Saturday spotlight. We both picked them. We felt like that was the game of the week, and it should have been not so much as it played out. So I guess I'll start, man, before I hand it off to you. So the notes that I had written down was a couple things, and that was overall, the Tennessee defense, they got worked over really bad, whereas their offense got stifled. And I know I had said for them to win that game, Tennessee, that you had to have a great game from Jalen Hyatt. He did next to nothing, next to nothing. And he got held in check by Lassiter. And then I think Kelly Ringo, who got a pick in the game, he was top-notch, excellent. And the O-line for the Vols got overwhelmed by Jalen Carter, of course, right? Like, he was eating it for lunch. Like, he set up camp in the backfield. He was having a picnic. He whooped them and worked them. And I feel like even the Vols O-line, they felt the pressure. It was, 7 pre-snap penalties? Something just ridiculous, man. Ridiculous. Yeah. And you know what? The funny thing is, not like Tennessee didn't have their chances. They missed so many deep throws that were there. You had one to Fant, one to McCoy. And I know how you feel about him, but I walked away very impressed with Stetson Bennett.
Yeah.
Especially the opening TD run that he had. So give me your full thoughts. And before you give me your full thoughts, I'm going to ask you this one question to sneak in there.
Yes, sir.
With that loss, is Hendon Hooker still your Heisman frontman?
I'm not going to say he's a front man, but it makes it a lot closer for those three quarterbacks. If you're going to go that way, those three quarterbacks.
Yeah, man. So when you walk away watching that game, because I think we both were glued to the game for most of the afternoon, what are your thoughts on that game as it played out?
Yeah, so first I want to shout out to our guy from Blogging the Boys, Tody Catalina. He's a Georgia fan. And my dude, Zach Chamley, started the Marine Corps with him. He actually, I know he watches because he referenced Haterade quite a bit, and he's a big Dogs fan. So I got those texts right away from him. But yeah, the just like you said, like Tennessee's defense, we had kind of talked about it earlier in that podcast that we said that their defense wasn't as bad as they were ranked, but it kind of looked like that, this game. And it was almost like this game was too big for them. Like they had the game against Alabama earlier this year, but that was at their own stadium in Knoxville. You travel down to Athens, Georgia, and it's a whole different ball game. Like you said, the pre-snap penalties, and then they can just never just find their rhythm. So the Georgia defense, I think they had 6 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, and I think they forced a turnover. But they played. So they played over the top. They're forcing everything underneath, and that's not what Tennessee wants to do. They always want, they're going to go big. And then when it came down to that, Tennessee never adjusted. So you don't adjust in a big game like that. You're going to try to play that kind of ball. It kind of ran away from him in the first quarter. And then in the second half, the weather got bad and no one was doing anything. Yeah. So, the final score was 27-13, but it wasn't really ever that close.
Yeah. That's the best way you could characterize it. Was Tennessee felt like the moment was too big for them.
Yeah.
And the offensive line really, to me at least, the offensive line showed it. I didn't see the pressure. I think even Robert Little got hurt in the game, so he left the game early. And even then, the pressure just kept coming. And I think it's funny because the storm is almost symbolic of what's going on. You guys are getting rained on right now by this defense. Mm-hmm. That came the weather. And it just got worse and worse and worse from there. And they were bailed out by just bad penalties here and there, but the Vols never felt like they had any shot to win that game. So that's
Yeah,
Tough,
they were
man.
2 for 14 on third downs. So they know you're not gonna win games not getting turnovers, and then going 2 for 14 on third downs. So
Yeah.
yeah, and then and not to interrupt you, but like we said, this game was gonna set up that monster game on November 26th between Ohio State and Michigan. There's a whole scenario that we could run down closer to rivalry weekend when we do our live show, but it's so now the ranking just came out, so now they're 2-3, so that's gonna be a big one. So now if Georgia runs the table and they beat, let's say, LSU in that title game, the SEC title game, or is that one loss good enough for them to sneak back in over, let's say, maybe a Pac-12 or a Big 12 champion? So it's going to get chaotic here, and especially if LSU would pull out something over Georgia, it'd be absolutely insane.
Oh no, it's most definitely. It's gonna get really crazy.
Yeah.
I've looked at it, and I'm gonna harken back to it later in the show, but it's
Yeah.
gonna get real wild, real crazy. Speaking of something that's not so crazy for us, because let's be honest, you and I, we hit these upset picks like it's nothing. Like look, if this was Clay and Steph Curry, you and I would be hitting it from three every time. Like these upset picks, we nail them all the time. So reminder for you guys, man, if you're not putting in your chips, cashing it, like throwing your bets off of us, it should be, because once again, we nail the upset special. So we had Kansas over Oklahoma State.
Yep.
So I kind of know what you think about this game, so I'll let you kind of take the lead. When you walked away watching that game, Kansas over Oklahoma State, what did you say to yourself?
Yeah, so they scored on 7 of 10 drives, and Oklahoma State can't stop the running backs. Their running back, all-purpose, he had like 334 yards total. And when you can't stop when you're just getting gouged running, it takes your will away to do anything. We see it at all levels of sports. If you can't stop the run, you're pretty much toast. So, yeah, and like I harped on it last week. Like, we make fun of Big 12 defenses, and it almost shows like Oklahoma State was like a, what would you call it, like a front runner. They're playing possum. So now it's they're falling back, and now TCU and Texas, then they're lining up for a good one later on, and and so it kind of just knocks Oklahoma State out of the picture with this loss to Kansas.
It does, and so I know we focused our last episode primarily on Georgia and Tennessee, but even in passing, we talked about this game being an upset, and it wasn't like we went into like a large point of detail. We just knew it. We kind of felt it, and if anything, that's more of us kind of poking the finger at the AP polls, because they've been kind of rocky as of late, Oklahoma State, and so you pointed that out last week with their defense. Them being ranked 18, as my son would say, there is an imposter among us. We could smell the rat in the room, and it was them. Like, it was them.
Yeah.
And I never felt like they earned the spot of being ranked number 18. Now, Kansas, we said, they were kind of rolling towards the season. They cooled off a little bit. They had a quarterback change. But between both teams, they weren't that much different.
Yeah.
Until the game started, different story. But, you got the guy Rangel starting in for Sanders, and then he turns the ball over several times in that game. And, you had the big run from Bean. I think you sent me, I saw the highlight live. You sent me a DM when the run happened. So it got worse from there. And as you mentioned, Devin Neal, 334 from scrimmage, a bunch of yards, as you talked about. So, yeah, that upset pick, we nailed it. But it was more so just you could smell it in the air.
Yep.
You felt it happening. So, definitely that part. And then for this segment, and I'll open it to you, and I feel confident that we're going to go in two different paths here, but I'll open it to you to start with first. Who either helped or hurt themselves the most in college football last week?
Yeah, it's going to be, I told myself I'm not going to do hurt because I could easily just say like Alabama, Clemson, they hurt themselves, but I'm actually going helped themselves this week. So I'm saying
I know where you're going.
Texas and Notre Dame. That's the two I'm going on here.
Wow.
So Notre Dame, they're playing a lot better than they were at the beginning of the year. Now they had themselves ranked, and it helps to beat the number 4 team in Clemson, even though we called them an imposter because we said they were the weakest of the top 6 teams. They've showed their ass, but they pulled it out recently. But and now with this win, Notre Dame, it's kind of like they're out of that funk. Marcus Freeman, he's going to be able to get his recruits in. His players are going to come back behind him again, and the program's going to build back up. Now they just have to say, hey, we're not going to be independent. We're going to join a conference. And now which conference is going to be? It's probably going to be the ACC, being that's mostly who they play most of the time. And it's a weaker conference than what the Big Ten or the SEC is setting up. And then I also said Texas. They had another Big 12 game this week, setting up with TCU. And even though they've lost a couple of games, they can set themselves up for a Big 12 championship. But that makes it kind of hard for the Big 12 to get in if Texas would get that, because I don't think a two-loss team has ever been into the CFP. So they would really have to show out here. But the big thing is they're playing better. They keep bringing in those recruits. They got to keep those recruits from Texas to stay in Texas, to build it up and not let them go to Ohio State or USC or something like that.
So I'm kind of your vibe though. So I definitely dig in your vibe with taking the positive route this week and kind of the happier route as to who helped themselves versus hurt themselves. And you have a lot of bullet points I think are going to intertwine with mine. Okay. And that is, I went with the Tigers, LSU.
Oh yeah.
I think LSU, they tremendously hurt. Like they hurt Bama. They hurt Bama, but they definitely helped themselves a lot. And if you think about it first, it's having the guts to go for it on the 2-point conversion to win the game. That's the first thing. And maybe for all intents and purposes, you may have knocked out Alabama, doing us all a solid, knocking them out of the CFP.
Yes.
I thank you, Tigers. I thank you, because we made them kind of a punching bag on the show earlier on. But now, Alabama with 2 losses, like you said, are you in the CFP now? Maybe not. But getting back to LSU, they're now in the driver's seat. And it's crazy to think this, though, but they may actually control their own destiny for the CFP. I mean,
they do.
So I got these notes here. I'm just reading through them now. They were unranked a few weeks ago now. You now jump tremendously in the rankings, plus it's a cupcake to end their regular season. Then, like you said, Michigan plays Ohio State. Very good chances to knock a team out of there. Then you also have Oregon, who may or may not slip up on their schedule. And then, of course, you have a monster in front of you in Georgia in the SEC title game, more than likely. But they win, they punch their ticket. So for them, it's just an incredible shift in fortune over the last few weeks. And the LSU Tigers, I got to give it to them. They helped themselves out in a tremendous way. So shout out to you, Tigers.
The only caveat I have to that is, they would be the first 2-loss team to get into the CFP if they do as the SEC champion. But if they do, they lost to Tennessee 40-13, but they beat Georgia, and Georgia would have 1 loss, and Tennessee would have that 1 loss. So it's kind of who are you putting in out of those 3 teams? And that's what I was talking about earlier when I said it was going to be chaotic, because it would be those 3 teams, and say Ohio State and Michigan play close to each other. Let's say that game goes into overtime and they lose by, so one of those teams lose by not making a 2-point conversion in the 3rd overtime or something like that. Those 2 teams are probably still going to stay in over, say, a Pac-12 champion or a Big 12 champion who has 1 loss apiece too. So
that bias is real. I mean, the conference bias is real, which it lends teams into why you, like you said, Notre Dame picking the right conference for you.
Yep.
But it's always going to be there. But to turn to the page, because it's going to get a lot wilder, more crazy in the coming weeks. But focusing on this week in front of us right now, we have our Saturday spotlight. So I'll go first in case you have other games on your radar for other reasons, but you may already have this one for something else. But I'm going to have to go, like you said, TCU at Texas in the Saturday spotlight. And if anything, it's about the star power to tune into. You have Bijan Robinson, Xavier Worthy, Quinn Ewers, Quentin Johnson, who might be a top, 15 pick in the NFL draft. And you said it, TCU has the best defense that we think in the Big 12. Yep. So I want to see it. So, but all that you see with these teams together, Texas has the offensive firepower, the playmakers. This should be a shootout on Saturday, without question. It should be a shootout. One of those Big 12 specials you love to see. So that's what I'm hoping for. Now, narratively, I'll leave something more on the table for you, but I think this is the one, the Saturday spotlight.
Yeah, and the only thing I have to say off that is, maybe if Sark uses Bijan in the second half, they could run away with that game. But I don't know what he's thinking half the time. But but like you said, that's not the game that I had though. The game that I chose is Washington and Oregon. So we've seen the Pac-12 beat up on each other multiple times. So they both play in the North. Oregon's at the top. They have 1 loss, but it's a non-conference loss. Washington is like 5th in the North. I think that's what they are. They're 5th in the North. But they're 7-2, 8-1. So if they give them if they would beat Oregon here, that shuffles everything around because Oregon's at 6, USC is at 8, I think. I think UCLA is 12, Washington's at 13. So and all those guys playing the North. And Utah, yeah, Utah's right there too. So they're gonna jostle around. Like we said, they beat up on each other all the time. And like Oregon, they're in control of their own destiny. So if they slip up here with one of these last games, it's going to be really interesting there too, because I don't think a one loss in the conference, a one loss in the conference Pac-12 team is going to make the playoffs. But to go off that, Oregon's playing a lot better than what they did in the 49-3 showing that they did in week 1.
They are.
And now what I really want to see is if Penix can regain what he was doing earlier this season. We talked about him being in the Heisman race when he was balling out. I want to see him do that against Oregon now. And I think, like you said earlier, this is going to be one that gets into a shootout. We can see multiple overtimes in this one as well.
Yeah. Again, if you're kind of like that person that watches college football for the overtimes, the high scoring output affairs, this might be your weekend. This definitely might be your weekend. Even then, it's hard to pick an upset special, so I've struggled with mine. I'll let you go first, because I don't think we're picking the same game at all, but go ahead.
Yeah, so my upset special was Maryland over Penn State. That's what you got?
Yep.
Nice, the hoodie.
Yep.
Yeah, so Maryland, they have a formidable passing offense. I think Tagovailoa is like second or third in completion percentage in the Big Ten. And Penn State is actually missing 3 of their 5 starting offensive linemen. So it's going to be a good test for the Penn State defense. They are a very stingy defense, but the Maryland offense poses a kind of a threat like Ohio State did to Penn State. So that's why I picked Maryland over Penn State here.
Yeah, same. I mean, so I looked at the games and I looked at the statistics, and it made so much sense to pick the hometown team this week based on how evenly matched they actually are, even though Maryland's going on the road at Beaver Stadium.
Yeah.
But you look at this and just the numbers itself. At 31 points per game, you have Maryland. Penn State, 34 points per game. Maryland's offense, 425 per game. Penn State, 431. Even the yard splits among defenses of what they allow in the passing game and the running game, they're almost the exact same. I mean, exact same split. So for me, it all comes down to the playmakers for Maryland. So if you look at Maryland, you have Tagovailoa. Yes, the same Tagovailoa, the brother of Tua. You have him. I think he's the difference. His mobility, his dual threat ability, plus the passing game allows them to have a shot there. Then you have to also factor in the freshman running back, Roman Hemby for Maryland, who I think is having a great season. So I feel like if Maryland kind of muddy up this game the same way they did for Ohio State, or this Penn State had happened to them, then you look at that and say to yourself, they've got a shot on the road. They could pull this game off on the road. And I think what's going to happen is that in the final minutes, they'll take it and they'll beat their old former OC, James Franklin. They'll beat him. And I think this is the one. Maryland actually takes the game in the Big 10 against a quality opponent. So I'm going with the Terps.
Yeah. And Penn State's only 2-2 at home. So it's not like they're world beaters at home, even though that's a very intimidating place to play. It just shows they could be beaten. So, yeah. Maryland over Penn State.
Kind of serving it up, though. They've been kind of teasing it for a couple of weeks, though. So feel good about that one, man. Definitely Maryland taking that game this week, man. Before we get out of here, I know we're up against the clock. Any final last thoughts?
No, like I said, it's kind of these last 2 weeks. There's a lot of these teams schedule like little cupcake games right now, and then they're gonna slam into their big game and rivalry weekend. So I'm looking forward to it, and you guys want to catch that live stream. That's where we're going to be.
Definitely, guys. So look, we got the live stream coming up. A lot more things to talk about in the college football world. Plus, bowl season. I'm sure we'll figure out something for bowl season. You don't want to miss out here on the Freshman 15. So hit that like button, hit that sub button. You can find Tyler at Cryptic Ghost 2 on Twitter, me on Twitter at SDQ Flight Crew. Find us there. But make sure you come back here on Stonehall Sports. Like, share, and sub. And as always, peace.
Peace.